Now, during these classes, we have been invoking the 10 Sufi thoughts, and we've come now to the third one, and I'd like to read it. The thought is, there is one holy book, the sacred manuscript of nature, which truly enlightens the reader. One great scripture, nature itself, the cosmos, which is enlightening. There's a wonderful verse in the Quran which says, Surah Luqman, it says, if all of the trees of the earth were pens and the sea was ink, replenished by 7 more seas, the words of God would not be exhausted. So this verse evokes that great universal scripture, that great cosmic scripture, imagining all of the trees as pens, all of the oceans as ink, all providing meaning, and yet a meaning which can never be exhausted. Every single created thing contributes to and conveys the divine meaning, and yet that meaning is never exhausted. As endlessly as we peer into nature, more and more will be revealed. So we might consider approaching the great al-Kitab, the great mother of the book, that is the spirit of guidance incarnate in the cosmos, that we might approach that great book just as we approach a scripture. Now, there are certain codes of practice concerning the approach to scripture. One is that one approaches scripture in a state of ritual purity. One prepares oneself for an initiatic encounter. One doesn't just casually grab hold of it. One feels that the very act of approaching it is a sacred one, to be approached with purity of intention. And then taking up the scripture, the study of it, the most profitable study, is what is described in the Christian monastic tradition as lectio divina, divine reading. And in the Islamic tradition, tilawat al-Quran. And this means that one approaches the scripture on multiple levels. So this is different from a scholarly reading of a text, for instance. It's not a matter of situating it in history and pinning down the time and place and references to other texts and so forth. That is all very interesting. But there's another way to invoke the divine word in Scripture, through lectio divina. And it has 4 stages. So the first is to read what is written on the page. So if we apply this to nature, it means reading the letters of the world, reading what is inscribed on the horizons, in the trees, amongst the birds, among the fish, in the seasons, in the sun and the moon and the stars. Really looking out, looking beyond the artifacts that we humans have created, looking to what the divine reality has immediately created without our intermediacy, nature itself, and reading it, watchfully, attentively, reading each letter. When you read scripture, you have to pronounce accurately, and that means, in the case of the Arabic Quran, you have to vowelize the consonants, link them up with the correct vowels, which are read into the consonants. The vowels aren't indicated on the page. They have to be breathed into the text. In the same way, you breathe into what you read in nature and mingle your breath with it, attentively reading each letter. And then you come to the second stage of Lectio Divina, which is called, actually in the language of the Christian tradition, it's called meditation. Now, in our Sufi tradition, in the words that Murshid uses, we would use the word contemplation. Contemplation means imaginatively experiencing something, experiencing the inner meaning of it. So this is what Blake called double vision, not only seeing the surface, but dreaming the encounter, discovering the inner contours of what you see, the subtle signature, the felt presence of it. So this is contemplation in our Sufi vocabulary. The Christian tradition uses the word meditation, but it means getting beyond the surface into the inner life of it. And it really means feeling it personally. It's not just anymore out there on the page. It affects you. It moves your breath. It stimulates a response. That's the second level. Let nature stimulate in you a response and feel that response and dwell in it. And then you come to the next stage, which is prayer. And prayer is a dialogue with God. Now you see that nature is the communication from God toward you. That you can see that God is speaking to you through nature. And God is the speaker. If these are all words, who spoke the words? Who is the speaker? And you feel behind all of the words, someone is communicating. And the prayer is to communicate back, to answer back the one who's speaking to you through nature. That's prayer. It's a dialogue with God. And then you come to what in the Christian tradition is called contemplation, and what Murshid would call meditation. So the two words are used just in the opposite sense. Meditation in the Sufi meaning means peace, stillness, even beyond the exchange of the dialogue, reaching into a state of communion, where you've forgotten the distance between yourself and God, and the conversation turns to silence. It turns to a space beyond words, and there you've entered the heart of nature and the very presence of God. So in this way, just as one reads a holy book, one can read the natural world, not by dissecting it and classifying it and so forth. That has a purpose in the scientific endeavor, but to read the sacred manuscript of nature means to find the speaker in the speech,